Hello, it's Wednesday morning. How are you? I'm Victoria Derbyshire. Welcome to BBC News. Here are the headlines. Good morning. It's going to be another busy morning. If you're getting in touch, you're very welcome. It's at Vic Derbyshire on Twitter, and you can send us an email, victoria@bbc.co.uk. First this morning, the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, has called on hospitals in England to use any spare lab capacity to test more NHS staff for the virus if they're self-isolating and want clearance to return to work. The government's been strongly criticised for being slow to test health workers, with only 15% of kits reserved for staff. Yesterday, a 13-year-old boy became the youngest person in the UK to die after contracting coronavirus. Ismail Mohammed Abdul Wahab from Brixton had no known underlying health conditions. Let's bring you the other main developments so far today. At the new temporary NHS Nightingale Hospital in East London, officials have revealed it will need 16,000 staff to work there once it's fully operational. As pressure grows on the economy, research out today suggests more than 800,000 businesses are just weeks from going bust. Some UK banks have agreed to scrap up to £9 billion in dividend payments in order to hang on to cash which might be needed during the crisis. In Scotland this morning, emergency legislation to tackle coronavirus will be debated in Parliament. And more evidence has emerged to suggest that loss of taste and smell may be an important symptom of coronavirus. Here's Dan. In the United States, President Trump has warned Americans to expect a rough 2 weeks and to stick to social distancing advice, saying it was a matter of life and death. More than 4,000 people have died there, overtaking the numbers recorded in China. The president called on every American to be prepared for what he called the hard days that lie ahead. Based on current projections, between 100 and 200,000 people could die of the virus in the US. In Europe, Italy, France and Spain all recorded more than 800 deaths yesterday. The lockdown in Italy has been extended. More than 12,500 people have died in Europe's worst-hit country. More on that in a moment with our correspondent Gavin Lee. But first, with the latest from Washington, our correspondent David Willis. So plenty of staff needed to run the new hospital in East London, the NHS Nightingale Hospital, currently being installed at the Excel Centre. That's according to its Chief Operating Officer. The 80-ward facility was created in fewer than 10 days and should be able to take its first patients by the end of the week. Angus Crawford has this. Now, women are continuing to be detained into a UK immigration removal centre despite a confirmed case of coronavirus, the BBC understands. According to the charity Women for Refugee Women, at least 5 new detainees have been sent to Yarl's Wood Detention Centre in Bedfordshire since last Sunday, when a woman there tested positive. We can talk now to... Thank you for talking to us, Polly Neate, who is the Chief Executive of Shelter in England. New Zealand's Prime Minister has warned it could take Brits some time to be repatriated back to the UK. Jacinda Ardern said that while New Zealand was willing to help, it needed to be done in a way that didn't negatively affect local people in lockdown. Meanwhile, in Australia, tens of thousands of British travellers are struggling to return home after being told they were low on a list of priorities for repatriation. Shaimed Khalil reports from Sydney. And let's bring you this from Spain. They have just reported the latest number of people who've died with coronavirus. Here are the headlines on BBC News. So far, Africa has not been impacted by coronavirus to the extent of other continents, but there are fears that healthcare systems will be unable to cope. The Central African Republic has just 3 ventilators for a population of nearly 5 million. Let's speak to the deputy in charge of the World Health Organisation's response. Re-establish our Skype with Dr. Richard Mahigo and talk to him particularly about the Central African Republic's, or the fact that they have 3 ventilators for a population of 5 million. We'll try and re-establish our technicals there. Apologies for that. Right, let's go to South America, where Brazil's president has given another television address in which He gave precedence to protecting jobs and shoring up the economy during the pandemic. President Bolsonaro said he wanted to make sure Brazilians could continue working. Protests have taken place in cities across the country after he downplayed concerns over the virus. Russell Trott reports. Richard Mahigo, who is the deputy in charge of the World Health Organization's response to COVID-19 in Africa. 49 African countries now have coronavirus in them, but the number of deaths there is still in the low hundreds. Now it's time for a look at the weather. Here's Carol.